Hello again, and thank you for giving your time and energy to leading the discussion of the sermon in the Sunday school class. I just would say again, this is an important opportunity for folks to discuss and read together again and talk about the meaning of Scripture. I think that's important for us as Anabaptists to be together in a setting where you can talk about the sermon and what the Scripture is saying. We're looking at Mark chapter 12, where Jesus is talking to them about taxes. Actually, he's been confronted with a question about taxes. So my suggestion would be a question to ask your class, just to get the conversation going. This is tax time. This is the time of the year when budgets are being proposed for state and government budgets, and taxes are in the news. So here's the question: what taxes do you hate paying the most? And which ones are you less bothered by paying? Just as a way to break the ice a bit and getting people to talk about it. Now, don't get into big political debates about this, but just ask the question about taxes. And then I would move to the question, what does Jesus mean when he says, give to God what belongs to God? Because I think that is the real crux of the question in this passage. What does it mean when Jesus says, give to God what belongs to God? Now, the story as it unfolds has Jesus being confronted by a group of Pharisees and Herodians. Now, you may want to do a little research on that, but you'll realize that these two people generally were at odds with each other. They were not a group that you would necessarily expect to see coming together to talk to Jesus or be agreed about anything. But the Pharisees and Herodians come together to trap Jesus into saying something that would get him arrested. That is sort of the drama that is unfolding here. They're trying to get Jesus arrested. So they ask Jesus this question: is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? And the dilemma is, if he says yes, pay the tax, then he's supporting Caesar. If he says no, don't pay the tax, then he's becoming a revolutionary, and he's probably going to be taken off and tried and killed. In fact, Luke 22 says that one of the reasons why Jesus was crucified was because he was telling people not to pay their taxes. But what are the taxes that are particularly being referenced here? And in particular, what he's talking about and being asked about is the poll tax. It was a tax that was levied on all people from about age 12 to 65, men and women. And it was instituted about 6 AD. You remember Luke 2 says a census was taken at the time when Quirinius was governor of Judea to determine the resources of the Jews. And it really stirred up a lot of anger. That's the backdrop to this. Judas of Galilee was a person at that time that led a revolt. Acts 5:37 refers to this. And it was suppressed, but only with a lot of bloodshed. And many scholars would date the origin of what's called the Zealots to that time. So there's this issue about this poll tax, but the coin itself is important to note. And I just want to give you a little backdrop to that. William Barclay says that to understand the importance of this coinage in the first century, you need to understand, first of all, it was a sign of power. The first thing someone did when they conquered a country, they would make new coins with their face on it. It was a sign of kingship and power. Secondly, where the coins were valid, the king held power. The king's influence was measured by the territory in which these coins were used as currency. And because it had his head and inscription on it, it was his personal property. So this coin is about ownership and about who's in charge. And so I think it's important to keep that in mind. And as you continue to work through this with your class, you'll come to the verse 17. And this will be where you're going to need to ask the question of each other. What does this mean? Jesus said, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. We are made in the image of God. We are stamped with God's image on our lives. What does it mean for us to give ourselves to God? Blessings as you share in this conversation with your class.